they need to make a move towards what Bernie Sanders did in 2016.
Yes.
100%. There was an article I read, and I thought they positioned this pretty well, and it could be bullshit, but I thought this was kind of interesting take, which was essentially Bernie Sanders spearheads this movement for the Democratic Party that is derivative of democratic politics, but not controlled by the traditional leaders within the Democratic Party. And it is a working class movement trying to help working class people who are absolutely struggling. This is 2016, and it gets incredibly popular. It's raising money at an insane clip. It was democratic socialism, but it's really just focused on the working class, right? There's no racial component at all. The only identity politics that was wrapped around it was essentially wealth inequality.
Yeah.
And it's so popular that apparently the traditional Democrats who control the Democratic Party had to find a way to thwart the popularity. So what they did is, and I don't know if you remember articles coming up about this, but essentially they started calling the Bernie bros sexist and racist. There's a Bernie bro problem. Bernie supporters have an issue. Not too dissimilar to what they've been calling the bro podcasts. Sexist or racist. It's kind of the same playbook. It's like you see something very powerful that's helping somebody that is not you. You have to make them radioactive so people don't go in that direction. And all the same thing they said about Bernie supporters, they've said about the podcasts that have allegedly helped Trump get elected. And what happened is the traditional Democrat Party then had to pivot away from the working class. And as you see by this election, the working class did not really support them at all. Yeah. And they even lost union support.
Crazy.
And they had to pivot towards identity politics. And now they had to constantly appease the intersectionality folk. And the problem with them is you're not just appeasing gays or just appeasing trans. They are all very concerned with oppressed groups. So something that oppresses the Asians, all of a sudden the gays are going to be like, well, they're an oppressed group too. You need to look out for them as well. And now there's this web of oppressed groups. So now the Democratic Party's like, fuck, we can't piss off any of them. And now they're frozen.
Yeah. They can be at odds. Like you saw with the DEI stuff, like, hey, we're gonna stop doing or like we'll get more affirmative action, get people of different ethnicities in school. And it's like, well, this is disadvantaging Asians. And it's like, oh, well, fuck. Okay.
Now the Democrats are frozen.
Now we're starting Asian hate.
Yes.
You gotta fix it.
So you try to appease everybody because you've become the party of identity politics. And then you appease none of them. And as you saw what happened, obviously, in Israel-Palestine right now, a lot of those people were absolutely furious with the Democratic Party and decided to abstain. They maybe didn't vote for Trump, but they were definitely not voting for this administration.
Yeah.
So that move, I think, tanked. I think tanked the party.
Do you think that justifies the top ticket switch in a lot of swing states? Like people voting Democrats down the line, but then voting Trump for president, which a lot of people have pointed out as potential voter fraud. That a lot of these swing states, you have people that are Democrat, everything local, Senate, House, everything Democrat, and then Trump for president. And people are like, we've never seen that ever
AOC
in history.
To her credit, she's been kind of like reaching across the aisle ideologically, asking like, what podcasts do y'all listen to that whatever your Trump guy? Also, why would y'all do this? And she got answers back. Some people were like, look, I'm not happy with the presidency. I'm not happy with the last 4 years ago. I'm still a Democrat. Some people just being like, I like Trump, but I do want some balance in the government. I don't want it to be completely red. So there were seemingly real answers and explanations on why people did that.
Interesting.
Yeah. Another interesting thing I saw is that so Kamala made a lot of her election run about abortion, and clearly people want their abortions because they assume that if people go out to vote to keep abortion rights, they're also going to vote for Kamala. But there were so many more votes for abortion rights, but then also for Trump.
Yeah.
So it's like they bet on that and it failed.
Yeah. People just buy more groceries than abortion.
Yeah, but also she couldn't really do anything for abortion.
If they had all three, they could codify it, I guess.
But they don't have.
The thing that's crazy is that so in I think 2022, there was like 7 states that had abortion rights on the ballot, and all 7 states abortion rights won.
Yeah.
And so they were like, so now they saw that, they're like, okay, let's run this time because people actually came out in the midterm elections, which rarely happens. So they ran on that. But to separate those two things, you have to combine Kamala with abortion rights. But the fact that you can vote for one and not the other, that's what fucked her up.
Yeah.
Because like now it's like people like, hey, this is the issue I care about.
that is kind
and you
of-
actually made me care about this issue enough to come out, but I'm only voting on that issue. And then if you make your whole election or your campaign about this one issue, but what about all the other thing I care about and you're not addressing those things? It's like,
I think
she
that-
kind of fucked herself up.
I think the tricky thing about that is just the way that the system is set up is that Kamala couldn't come in and do an executive order or anything that would protect or give back abortion rights. And that was an issue actually for me voting for her is because I sat there and I thought about it and I was like, well, yeah, I don't agree with the decision to send it back to the states, and I want women to be able to maintain those rights. Like even there's a lot. I don't know if we've discussed this on the pod, but like it's. And I've talked to a few women about this. It's not even like they're going to use the abortions. It's once you feel you have something and then it's taken away. Yeah. It's like if somebody goes, you can never go to a hockey game again. And it's like, well, I wasn't going to go to a hockey game, but fucking, I might want to go to a fucking hockey game. You know, it's like,
and this is much the most high stakes version of that.
Exactly. Like if it was even something that small, I would be like, well, why can they go to a fucking high, but I can't. What the fuck is going on? You just start to feel, it feels like an attack on your freedom. I know that sounds crazy for guys who it doesn't affect us in any way, but I get the idea. Women are like, I could do this thing, and now you're telling me I can't do this thing.
The gun thing you had talked about last week. Like, you can't have a rocket launcher anymore. It's like, well, I didn't have one.
But well, now I fucking want one. Why do you get to decide if I can have a rocket launcher?
Yeah.
So, but then when I found out, because I asked, I was like, okay, let's say she gets elected, what would she do? And then it's like, well, she can't do anything. Maybe she could put in Supreme Court justices if she had the opportunity. And then maybe they could look at, I guess, Roe v. Wade again. And then maybe if they were able to flip the Senate and the House, they could codify it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So it's like there's all these maybes, but there wasn't anything tangible that she could do. So I'm like, am I about to not care about all these other issues that I think that she's abysmal on for this one issue that she truly cannot do anything about? And it didn't seem like it made sense for me.
People were so surprised that like so many women voted for Trump because they tried to make it like, oh, vote for Trump is like a vote against women's reproductive rights. But if Trump did a great job of saying he appeased both groups. He said, hey, I'm the guy responsible for getting Roe v. Wade overturned. So that appeased all the people who are against abortion. But then he also said, I am not going to make any federal ban on abortion. So now at least it gives hope to the people who care about abortion. Is like, okay, we can leave it up to the states.
He also said on our pod that
did that massive.
Yo, he handled that really well.
He also said on our pod, if some states overreach, like Arizona, I assume Texas as well, he would tell them, like, I'm not going to support this. You guys need to roll it back a little bit. Yeah. Which if you're, like, a lot of the abortion bans are not that crazy. Texas is insane. A couple others, Alabama probably, Arizona probably. And if you are listening and you're like, oh, if Trump will get those to kind of like be more lenient, then maybe it's not the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
So yeah, he handled it masterfully, and like you said, I don't think Kamala did a good job. She never got to connect.
Yeah.
That was a big. I don't even know if it's wrestling or not, but like we never got to know her as a person, and I think that's what you talked about last week, which is just a massive problem.
Yeah, she sucked. And now I've seen some people on the Democrat side do is like they're trying to blame Biden for this. Like there's this
big blame Biden move.
And here's the thing.
A lot of blame.
Well, he didn't help.
Well, no. I agree with you. He didn't help. And like, there's some reports that are saying like, if he had ran, there would have been an even greater landslide victory for Trump, which I do believe, because I think that people viewed him as a danger to the United States of America, him in charge. Yeah. So I do understand that, and I do believe that he didn't help. But what I would say is that the biggest issue for the Democrats, and I think you could solve so much, is if they allow the democratic process to actually work, you will see the party flourish.
Yeah.
So a perfect example is this. This almost unknown one-term senator out of Chicago gives a speech at the DNC and fucking rocks the house. This guy is originally from Hawaii. His middle name is synonymous with one of the most terrifying figures in American history. Like everything about him on paper shouldn't work, but he was so magnetic that you could not deny him.
Yeah.
Right? The people decided, After Barack, it hasn't been the people deciding.
And Hillary was supposed to run.
Hillary was supposed to run. They want Hillary to run, but they see what's happening right this. And then the party made the smart decision, which was like, hey, the people have decided they want this. The Democratic Party has these things called superdelegates. We've spoken about this a lot. So in the primary process, there can be like an ex-governor or something like that, and his one vote is worth 10,000 votes. So in the event that somebody's losing a primary, you can, or the caucuses, is that essentially what it's called?
Yeah.
You can, that one governor's vote can offset
what the people want.
exactly. And they use that to control the candidate. And the problem with that is if you're controlling the candidate, you're stripping the people of what they want. And by stripping the people what they want, you actually hurt yourself.
Yes.
Because you don't get a candidate that's going to reflect the desires of the people. You put 10 people on that stage, 2 or 3 of them are going to start hitting on issues that matter to the people. They're going to start going viral. There's going to be a lot of interest, a lot of donations. And then one of them is going to win, and he might be a guy who hosted The Apprentice. That's what happens on the Republican
The
side.
Democratic primary is shockingly not democratic.
It's
at
not
all.
democratic. Yeah. And it goes back to their pretentiousness. It's this, hey, we know what you guys need. We know what's right. You guys are fucking dumb. Let's us handle this and we'll figure it all out.
Or we know what we want, and you guys are so dumb you'll believe us, while we as
can
Nancy
convince you.
Pelosi,
Yeah.
I'm going to make hundreds of millions on the stock market or whatever, and you retards are just going to believe me because I'm going to throw you a little bone about your identity politics or whatever. You know what I just thought of as you were talking? The last time the Democrats had a primary that we felt was truly like democratic and lost the presidential election was probably 1988. Clinton won in 92, repeated in 96. 2000, Al Gore ran as VP. Maybe he won the primary. But it was 2000, one time in 30
You
years.
usually let the VP, but maybe he did win the primary. I'm not exactly sure.
Either way, if so, that's 24 years. That's the only time. Hillary in 2016, they lost because we felt the primary was rigged.
Yeah.
And it seems like it was. 2024, there was no primary. None of us wanted Kamala, it seems.
Yeah.
And you guys can tell me she would have won a primary. That means your party is an even bigger joke. If she won the primary and y'all got your asses beaten this bad in the general, then y'all got to
Let the people
Also,
tell
to
you.
your point, yeah, I would agree that Republicans don't do that as much because after January 6th, Trump was like toxic. People, like the party was trying to move away from him.
Yeah.
Like Fox News,
Yep.
like everybody, they
Absolutely.
were speaking out bad about him, but the people were like, nah, we still fuck with this guy. And they had to pivot and be like, all right,
They don't
this is
have
our
a
guy
choice.
again.
Yeah, because they don't have the superdelegate system. So they can't offset it. They can use media to offset it. They can use political pressure, but they can't stop the people from having a say with their vote. And what you end up getting are the people that are communicating the desires of the candidates that are communicating the desires of the people. So it's almost like Democrats, you don't need to fix that much. Just let the system work.
Yeah.
Stop rigging the system, and you will get candidates that are speaking to what the people actually desire. What the people actually desire might not be what you believe your party is.
Yeah.
But it's not up to you to decide what your party is. The people decide.
But them donors, though.
Yeah.